Hey, what is going on YouTube? Hey, Aaron here. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are in the USS Gearing, the forgotten legendary tier American gunboat. I had not played this ship in a very long time when we played it on stream the other night, and we had a fantastic game. I forgot how good this ship was, mainly because I had been playing a lot of the Sumner, the American Tier 8 destroyer, which recently got a nerf, but the Gearing is just as strong, if not stronger now, after the nerf to the Sumner. Now, we actually did miss the beginning of the game. I did not record that part, but we basically launched our torpedoes from the start. The Gearing has some of the longest range torpedoes in the game, so I go ahead and flood that zone. On top of that, she is one of the best gunboats at the tier. Now, that being said, the Gearing can be outmatched by the Kaba, the Kleber, and even the Daring with the Smoke Hydro combination. But when you put yourself in the right spot, you pay attention to your surroundings, and like we mentioned, have some decent teammates. The Gearing is just a highly influential and fun boat to play. It's also fun when you connect those long-range torpedoes. You couple it with the long American smoke and the guns, like we mentioned, and you can just put a hurting on the enemy battleships and really have a great impact on the game. But let's go ahead and get to the strategy. Here, we get into a pretty tough spot. There is the Sumner, what I previously thought was one of the strongest, gunboats in the game, and we kind of catch him. He shows broadside, so we switch to the AP, but he's angling back up. We also disabled his engine as we get hit by what I can only assume is a few of the other enemy battleships. But because we disabled his engine, he turned back in and was, kind of removing that angle. We go ahead and switch back to the HE, at which point we catch a fire. And a little trick you can use is when you hold, your cursor on point, as you saw us doing there, you can kind of continually blind fire whatever ship is sitting in the smoke. Also, something we did was turn out, as we could only guess that the Sumner was launching torpedoes, and we were correct in that assumption. Smoke screens are great targets for advanced or decent destroyer players who want to catch other destroyer players or ships sitting in smoke. That is when we employ the same strategy we actually did with the other Sumner and kind of follow our blind fire. It wasn't really a true blind fire, but we get the elimination on that Shima. A teammate got the elimination on our Kaba. And there is only one destroyer left, and that is when another one of our teammates is in radar range. The Sumner pops up. He is very low from our fire. We throw a few salvos his way, and that is pretty much an early game win for our team. The game is not over, however. We have seen much worse losses, and they do have a few ships, one cruiser, and a few battleships which do have a hydro in terms of the Kurfürst. But generally, in games like this, when you lose your destroyers early, it's pretty much over. But that is why it is a huge reason as a gunboat, especially in any destroyer, really, you should try and go out and at least spot or go after or, find out or give your team some reconnaissance as a destroyer player. But especially in a gunboat, you should be going out and the first priority should be going after enemy destroyers, such as we did. We eliminated the Shima and the Sumner there. So even if we were to die right now, we take a torp or whatever, ideally we'd like to get this cap, but we have accomplished what so many destroyer players fail to do. They think it is about getting torpedoes on battleships, etc. But if you will notice right now, these battleships are essentially unguarded, right? There is nothing besides the Kurfürst Hydro and wherever the Des Moines is. I think he was on the other side. Yeah, he's on the very north side of A. So we are now allowed to roam freely, setting smoke screens, lobbing these, battleships with torpedoes, etc. On top of that, we just got the cap. So even if we were not to get as much damage as we actually do in this game with torpedo hits, etc., we would still have a fantastic XP total. There's a difficult, narrative or, place to be in when you're a content creator trying to get these videos, because of course you guys want to see interesting games with the high damage and the liquidator like we actually get in this video. But I also sometimes want to put out games where I do just a little bit, just enough, and I think I have a game in the Akatsuki which shows this, which maybe are not the most impressive, but it teaches the basics to the community, right? So many destroyer players think it's all about torpedo hits and dev strikes, and that's just not the way to play. It is, I can't tell you how frustrating it is when I see a destroyer avoid his responsibilities and leave his teammates out to dry. Now, if you get the DD and then you want to go torpedo hunting, that's fine. But get the DD, get the cap, and then you can go hunt the battleships, which is exactly what we did in this game. In the meantime, you will notice we actually got 2 torpedo hits, one and then a second, which is why I do recommend sometimes staggering your torpedoes. What we mean by that is you launch one set, you kind of see if they change course. And we actually launched a wide set on the second set, which is that's kind of a personal feeling. If you want to go wide on the second set, go ahead. But we got 1 torpedo hit on that curve first there, and then a second, and you can see we are just racking up the damage in terms of flood damage. It is one of the worst things and worst feelings as a battleship player when you catch a torpedo, you put it out, and then you see the second set come approximately. Well, American battleships have a 20-second damage con, but the German and the rest of the fleets have a little bit less. So that is, kind of the separation time you want to wait. But here we actually have this Colombo coming around the corner. We're kind of in a forward position if one of these ships, such as the Colombo or other, were to turn in. And this is actually where a lot of destroyer players make mistakes. They kind of rush ahead as we actually get the liquidator on that curve first. That is one of the, I think, less than 1% of the players who have downloaded this game. Now, some people download it and then never play it again, but less than 1% of the players who download this game have that medal. So a very rare medal indeed, but it is accomplished by kind of staggering your torpedoes such as we did. But we go ahead and pop our smoke screen. We launch one set on the Colombo. We go ahead and throw a few salvos his way. Ideally, we would like to catch a fire. He puts that out, and then we get a flood, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. But we're going to go ahead and switch targets, mainly because we do have torpedoes on the way to him. He actually turned. Sometimes it is not the best idea to smoke up after you launch torpedoes, but it did work in our favor, mainly because he was so close to us. But sometimes, I kind of catch myself getting greedy in terms of the DPM and the damage of these guns. But if you smoke up after you launch torpedoes and the battleship player has half of, an IQ point, he will be like, oh, that's a smoke screen. And a smart player, such as this Colombo did, turn towards me. If not, he probably would have eaten a lot more of those torps. But again, we kind of mentioned we're kind of in this forward position here, and we can see that this Colombo popped his smoke screen, and he is probably trying, to come get us. The Colombo is a very dangerous threat to destroyers, and with the amount of damage that we have lost already, we can't really, risk trying to YOLO him or get right alongside of him. That is, if I'm being honest, that is one of the worst plays a destroyer can make, is YOLO rushing a battleship when you don't need to. You see it so often. You'll see a destroyer very early game just decide to YOLO rush a battleship just to get those fancy medals on screen, and he goes down and you are lost. You lose spots and the ability to find the other destroyers. But here, when the game doesn't really matter, you can kind of decide to make that play, but I still think it's just not the best play as a destroyer to getting detected as a destroyer, from a battleship is it's like an own goal. It's one of the worst plays you can make. Now, of course, here the game is over, so we're going to go ahead and kind of troll this Yamato and DPM him. But part of the reason that we're questioning this decision or starting to turn out so we can dodge is because of these salvos that the battleships put on me in the opening game. You saw it. We were we were only detected for a few seconds as he puts another hit on me. So two or three good salvos from battleships can completely negate a destroyer's game plan and force them to play one-dimensionally, especially on a boat like the Gearing with the very long reload time that the torpedoes do have. So the lessons that we can learn from this game as a destroyer player: try and fulfill your role. I think it is very selfish when you have 8 other teammates and you just try and play for yourself. Now I get it, it's a free-to-play game. Not everyone's going to play how I want or even the quote-unquote correct way, but it's like a pickup game of basketball, the analogy we use so often. You wouldn't go into that game and start punting the basketball, right? You'd be kicked out of the YMCA. And I think similar social constructs apply to Legends. You should try and play in nature of the game. Supporting your team, trying to get the enemy destroyers, etc. At which point you can clearly see we get a few more torpedoes on target. So when you do your job, you have free reign of the map and you get a win instead of just avoiding all objectives, etc. Another point to learn as we get the Witherer, just a true toxic metal, especially in a destroyer. If you did not know, that Witherer is from flood damage as well as fire damage, as someone kind of a yoinks our kill. No, there's no such thing as kill stealing. But a final point that I want to point out is, and the enemy, both teams actually did a good job of it, is focusing destroyers when they are spotted. When we were spotted for half a second there, we got absolutely blasted by, I believe, the other Yamato and a Kurfürst, or however many ships. We lost nearly half of our health, and we were spotted for 5 seconds. But on the contrary, our team did an even better job as we eliminated all of those destroyers right off the bat. A 31-54 score in first place there, only 3 kills, only 100 quote-unquote 50,000 damage. And I don't know why I even read comments sometimes, but somebody mentioned the other day, and I think it was Durka's or maybe it was Zarkoon's video. It's like, well, Aaron didn't get 100K, so it's not a good game. I have never, ever said that, especially in a destroyer. What I meant by that is it was maybe not a great game for me personally. I hold myself to a little bit higher standard, but damage in a destroyer is completely irrelevant. That 16,000 damage we had to the enemy destroyers in the beginning of the game was so much more important than the other damage we had to the battleships at the end of the game. Percentage damage is far, you will get more XP doing 2,000, damage to a destroyer than you will 2,000 to a battleship. It is percentage based. So if you're in a destroyer, don't necessarily worry about damage. Try and focus on zoning torpedoes, getting the objectives, and killing enemy destroyers. But that is the build, as well as a little, kind of info and how-to guide, and just a fun replay in the gearing. And we actually have a game in the Kurasame, I believe, where I only get about 15,000 damage, but we live. So I will be placing that in the future, just kind of further proving my points. Now, that being said, damage in a battleship is different. You do need to be doing damage in a battleship as well as attracting damage. But that is why we do these videos. I have always tried to educate the player base to have, a more fun experience for everyone, win or loss. I really don't like the swamps either way, and that one was, kind of a swamp. But GG's to everyone. Shout out to Delta and Mr. Finney there for joining me in that game. Divisions are truly OP, right? No, I'm just kidding. But follow the principles of the game, the principles of your ship, and you will have a lot more fun in Legends, I promise you. You'll get higher XP, more damage, etc. But that is the gearing, a great replay, and a little destroyer tutorial for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Love you guys. I will see you probably tonight on stream or whenever. Make sure to like the video, subscribe if you're not already. Join the Discord and any other social media stuff. Yeah, YouTuber. I'm a professional YouTuber, right? Not just some dork doing videos. Love you guys. Hey, Aaron out. Peace.